Coming up on This Week in Computer Hardware, we've got 2 Tegra K1 Android tablets, a problem with 6 gigabyte Western Digital Reds, and lots of NAS action. And if you're looking for 64 gigabytes of RAM, you might want to wait. It's all coming up next on Twitch.
Netcasts you love.
From people you trust. This is TWiCH.
Bandwidth for Twitch is provided by CacheFly at CACHEFLY.com.
This is TWiCH, This Week in Computer Hardware, episode 277, recorded July 24th, 2014. 64 gigabytes of RAM, Shield tablets, and so much more. Welcome to TWiCH, This Week in Computer Hardware, TWiCH's weekly show that aims to bring you the most useful, most informative, most fun, and most meaningful discussion, interpretation, commentary, and help with computer hardware, tablet hardware, and occasionally even, yes, ladies and gentlemen, the smartphones. Joining us from a glorious several days in, I believe, Dallas, Texas at QuakeCon, helping people kill other people virtually in Quake faster, better, and with more supery awesomeness, Mr. Brian Shrout of PCPro.com.
Thank you. Thank you for clarifying that in a virtual sense that was occurring.
Back from killing lots of people in Texas.
I don't want to get on any lists or anything, so.
You're on the list, buddy. So how was QuakeCon, man?
This surprised me.
You had
QuakeCon was a blast.
$35,000 worth of hardware to give away?
Yeah, it was like $34,000 worth of stuff, and we had a Tom from NVIDIA actually gave away a GeForce Titan Z.
Nice.
That's kind of like the grand finale, which is the $3,000 video card. It was kind of like a, hey, surprise type of thing. I knew he was going to do it. The rest of the people did not know, even on our team didn't really know. So it was a lot of fun. You know, like I kind of say every year, the build up to QuakeCon for us is certainly a pain in the neck because of all the organizing that I have to do to get this show ready for that many people with this many prizes and that many kind of sponsors and presenters all in one place. Doing that all myself can be nerve-wracking for sure, but for me, focused on the hardware side of things and the PC gaming side of things, it really helps to go to an event like that and kind of be re-inspired about people that want to game on PCs. Like just walking around the BYOC and seeing people having fun and playing games and wanting to show off their computers and what mods they've done to them, or even if they haven't done mods, just proud about what they were able to purchase and what they're able to get out of that machine. Really creative displays of some things. Like one guy brought a short throw projector and then like probably an 80-inch projector screen, and he had to rent 2 BYOC spots, one on one side of the aisle and one on the other side of the aisle, one for the projector screen and one for the computer and the projector, so that he could have both and point it across the aisle there. And you had, you know, just like forum groups that only meet up once a year there, and they have they do stacks of the real sugary soda, Balls, BAWLS. They have like a gaming branded type. It really started that like energy drink. And they have pizza boxes and then a bunch of empty cans and then pizza boxes. They make towers as tall as they can make them. And they do really fun stuff throughout. And besides it being freezing cold in that room with like 2,200 PCs or whatever it happens to be, it was impressive, right? It's just a fun thing to go to and see the excitement that other people have for PC hardware and for PC gaming. And it kind of, I always come back from it. Well, I come back from it really, really tired and worn out. But like after I recover a couple of days, I come back and I go, there is that audience. There is that people that are actually, there's people that are actually reading our site and watching our show and paying attention to all the stuff that we have to say. So make sure you do it right, dummy.
Sound advice to everyone listening.
Yeah, just make sure you do it right, dummy.
What was it one of the astronauts said on a tour of one of the facilities where they were building part of the Mercury capsule? Do good work, I think it was.
Yeah, that seems like a reasonable thing you would tell somebody that's going to build the thing that's going to take you hundreds of thousands of miles away from the planet. Yeah, I would do that.
Yeah, Gus Grissom, of course, said that. Wait, see if I can find out where he was touring. The Convair plant where the Atlas rocket was being built. Expected to give a speech to the employees, but unsure what to say. He told them, do good work. And that's all he said.
A man of many words, clearly.
Truly awesome. Xiaomi Mi Pad 7.9 Android tablet review utilizing NVIDIA Tegra K1 system on a chip. This is kind of an NVIDIA heavy day, folks. Mostly it's a Tegra heavy day. It's a tablet. It's an NVIDIA tablet heavy day. Xiaomi, actually, it's funny. This is the second time I've heard Xiaomi in the last like 36 hours because people are asking us, are we going to review Xiaomi's latest phone? And it's like, well, no, because they're only selling it in the Pacific or the Asian Pacific region. This is interesting. The 50,000 units sold in 4 minutes, according to some reports. Ryan, you found this on AliExpress.com, which if you've never been there, if you're thinking to yourself, you know what I really need out of life is a 10-pack of inexpensive knockoff whole set HX35 turbocharger clones, some suspiciously branded motorcycle tires, and several cases of ramen style noodles, AliExpress is your kind of place. Well, you know what I mean? It's like it's Alibaba for end users. If you've never been to Alibaba, it's like the gateway to importing stuff from China via the internet. Oh, here we go. Oh, this is great. I had no idea. AliExpress.com. Hair extensions and wigs, dresses, apparel and accessories, cell phones, and women.
Everything we need. Everything we need in life, right? It's like I looked at it as like a super international eBay, right? Sometimes really huge companies selling there, and sometimes like individuals that are selling some of their own goods and services, if you will, are on there as well. It's the first time I'd ever actually bought anything from them, but it was for this particular buyer, it was a seamless experience. Like I only paid like $22 for shipping, and it got here in like 3 days from China. It's pretty good. So.
Oh, and I just want to say for Burke, they do have motorcycle tire warmers, analog and digital. Should you need your tires kept warm, I just wanted you to know that it's a thing.
He's excited. He's excited.
Warm, I guess, before you race. In any case, you're kind of getting the spirit of Alibaba here. Tablets. I mean, if you don't realize, there are 1,000 tablets you've never heard of. Oh, yeah. From 800 brands you've never heard of. I think it's Shenzhen in China, which is basically sort of an electronics manufacturing center or mecca. And you can basically roll into a shop there, check a bunch of specs off of a list, cut them a check or a wire transfer or however you pay for a container load of tablets. And the container load of tablets will show up, 6 or 8 weeks later. And hopefully get through customs, assuming you did the paperwork. But Xiaomi is a huge cell phone manufacturer. They're trying to basically sort of fight. They're kind of some people consider them the Apple of Asia, and they are trying to make some badass stuff. So now that I've talked way too much about AliExpress and random items on it, how did you think? I mean, what did you think? I mean, it's an 8-inch tablet. 2048 by 1536, like 326 pixels per inch. So it's got us in that sort of retina-ish display territory. Was it beautiful?
It is essentially almost identical in specifications to the iPad mini Retina, with the exception of the SoC. The screen resolution is the same. The DPI is the same. The form factor is the same. The color, it kind of looks like a mix of an iPad mini Retina and like an iPhone 5C in terms of the color combinations. But the difference is, the primary difference is that this is using the NVIDIA Tegra K1. And this was actually the first product announced with the Tegra K1. NVIDIA even made like a launch video for it that they posted on GeForce.com and stuff. It's a decent looking and feeling tablet, like kind of surprisingly so, based because I had never bought anything from this company before. But even some people like Ken, who I can kind of consider like that Apple guy who's really concerned about the fit and finish of things, when he was holding it, says it feels really solid. It's not overly heavy. It feels well built. Like you don't feel the edges peeling off or anything already. So that's a big positive. That processor is kind of the key difference there, right? So this is like the Kepler based SoC, the one that has a full Kepler SMX in it, 192 GPU cores in the Tegra K1 part. It's got essentially the same processor cores, the same ARM Cortex A15 configuration, and a 4+1, a quad core with one for low power usage. It has updated like image signal processing engines. It's got support for 4K video output and input, and it's a fairly powerful machine. The the CPU performance overall was it was good. It was really, really good, right? It was better than every other Android tablet I've tested and better than the Apple iPad Air. And I think I'd say 60 or 70% of the benchmarks, right? So you look at Mozilla Kraken, that's actually the lower score is better in that one. So the Xiaomi MyPad 7.9 up top is doing the best result there. But I think if you look at one of the other browser-based tests, shows the Apple as the faster of in that kind of comparison, right? And then we get into SunSpider is that one, right? So SunSpider JavaScript benchmark, the iPad Air is faster than that. But if you look at it just with the Android setup there, it's clearly the fastest Android tablet that we've tested. Now, what's more impressive is the graphics, right? And that's kind of what you expect based on kind of the pedigree of NVIDIA as a company. And this being their kind of first really custom-built mobile GPU, right? This is the first time they did all customization on other stuff before, but this is really their first kind of like built from the ground up for mobile technology. And if you look at some of these benchmarks like 3D Mark, or if you look at like the graphics bench T-Rex result, like you're talking about performance differences of 3 to 4x over other Android tablets, right? Including like Tegra 4. And then on over iPad Air, which has an exceptionally fast GPU on these tests, you're still talking again 2 to 3x in a lot of tests, right? And it's super impressive in those places where you can take advantage of it. And that's kind of the big issue for NVIDIA right now with this SoC is like building the software ecosystem that can take advantage of that graphics horsepower. Because right now, Android games, or even iOS games for that matter, are not graphically complicated enough in the vast majority of titles, right? Maybe a couple of them that buck this trend. They're not graphically complicated enough to really take advantage of the horsepower provided by the GPU. You know, we had, if you looked at the video that we posted, they have like a NVIDIA FaceWorks demo on the Google Play Store. And in it, it's like a hyper-realistic rendered face. And with that, you can see some of the potential for the power of this SoC. And it's a truly impressive looking demo that you first saw rendered I think on a GTX 680 desktop graphics card at one point. And then they were able to, obviously resolution's a little bit lower, texture's a little bit lower, but like the visual quality on it is super impressive. We just need to see more games that actually can do some stuff with that, which we'll kind of talk about in the next story on that. Battery life was okay in this. It was pretty good, like 9 hours in our Wi-Fi test, compared to like 8 hours in the Tegra Note 7, which uses Tegra 4. Now, the difference you have to think about that is that this device has a 6,700 milliamp hour battery, while the Tegra Note 7, I believe, has a 1,600 milliamp hour battery. So there is a huge battery size difference. And that would let us to, if you look at the battery life page, I have something called calculated power consumption, if you just go down to the next graph there. And this is not super scientific because it is basically taking our battery life test and kind of dividing it by the battery size or vice versa. And so you're going to get an idea of efficiency of the system as a whole. And clearly the Tegra K1 is using the most power out of all of the Android tablets here tested, right? Whereas the Asus Nexus 7 is the most power efficient. It gets the most battery life per watt hour of battery. The MyPad 7.9 is getting the least by quite a bit, actually. So something to keep in mind, right? As people release versions of this tablet with smaller batteries, maybe they're trying to get smaller form factors or something, or if you were ever thinking about this being in a phone, right, that's going to be a complicated issue, and kind of explains why we have maybe seen a slower uptick in vendor adoption of this part than NVIDIA would have liked. So, but I mean,
also, go ahead.
I was gonna say, it's like I paid $344 for it. That's including importing it from China, $22 for shipping. It's not a bad device. It's really not. It's. I wish it were a kind of a base Android install as opposed to having this kind of chunky like overlay, launcher and everything with it. And it's got some Chinese applications that you can't get rid of, and it's got like access to their version of an application store and audio store and video store that you have to get around. So it's not the ideal tablet to get for somebody that's like just looking for a tablet. You have to really kind of know what you're getting into if you're going to import any of these devices from China, whether it be this tablet or the phone you were talking about earlier.
Well, you know, it's funny, right? So NVIDIA obviously, you know, like Intel, for example, they want a toehold in this huge, gigantic, ginormous, ever-growing ARM market. NVIDIA's secret sauce, of course, is their graphics prowess. You know, and you know what you might want to think about, because is that's kind of their goal with the Tegra K1 and the Shield tablet. And you mentioned that you're going to talk about games. Let's talk about games. I mean, there's not a lot of people, I think, or maybe there's not currently a lot of, you know, GPU involved in, I don't know, art apps on Android, or is there? You know, it's tough, right? Because when you think of a lot of the more sophisticated or powerful apps, I'm going to take a lot of nasty email on this one, but I'm going to say most people are thinking iOS. You know, do you see a games market evolving on Android, or a more sophisticated games market evolving on Android? I mean, it's a tough question. We were talking about this earlier today. A lot of people, you know, they play casual games. They have something they play for 3 minutes in line, you know, at the store or something like that. And what NVIDIA wants is serious, sophisticated, multiple levels, lots of action. I mean, you know, the graphics benchmarks are fantastic. You know, is this something that's going to evolve in the future over time, or is this something that NVIDIA is just going to push?
I think that for that evolution to occur, it is going to require outside influence, right? And that kind of, I mean, it leads us right into the next story, right? Where also this week, NVIDIA announced the Shield tablet, which is essentially a Tegra K1 tablet of their own design that they're releasing into the US next week. And we'll talk about some of the other specs and stuff a little bit, but in relation to the games, like one of the big stories they were trying to promote was, hey, we're going to have 11 specific Tegra K1 games released for this. And they range everything from Portal and Half-Life 2 revamped to use full OpenGL, because the Tegra K1 supports full OpenGL, and that's kind of like one of the big you know, shining points for its GPU. And it has games like something called War Thunder, which is a kind of arcadey flight simulator, massive online type game that I had not played before going to this meeting, but it was an incredibly impressive visual game. And then, you know, there are several other games in there. Trine 2 was going to ship with every Shield tablet pre-installed. That's actually a very popular game that was on PC before. And Anomaly 2 and some other games that you may or may not have heard of before. But their goal is to get developers to see that you can convert games over to Tegra K1 specifically using OpenGL, a graphics API that you may already be using, right? So think of all the games that are built for PlayStation 3 and PlayStation 4 that are kind of like that indie arcade style or you know, downloadable game, if you will. How much of that could be actually converted over to be used on these high-end SoCs in the mobile market? And I think that's really what NVIDIA is going to try to do, right? Because Tegra, you know, when they first launched Tegra, they wanted to be in mobile phones, they wanted to be in smartphones, they wanted to be in tablets. And it's, as we have gone from 3 to 4 and now to K1, it's become more apparent that getting them into a smartphone isn't going to happen anymore. If you look at that power efficiency graph we showed, that's not their goal. They're calling Shield Tablet like the tablet for gamers, and that audience has to be built, because the tablet gamers of today are not the kind of gamers that are super concerned about having the best controller to use on a game or having the best graphics in a game compared to other things, right? So you don't need a Tegra K1 to play Clash of Clans, but you do need a Tegra K1 to play Portal or Half-Life 2 at 1080p and things like that. And I think some of those features of the Shield tablet will actually, you know, help build into that audience as well. I think it will impress people enough that they may be willing to give it a shot.
Okay, I'm all for giving it a shot.
Like the idea of hooking your tablet up to a TV and then having up to 4 Wi-Fi direct controllers and using it essentially as a console. I'm very curious to try that and see what it's like and what games are available for that. Because, you know, we have a Shield tablet in, we just got it in, and the controller in, and we're playing it. And I know what that experience is like already. But again, you're talking about a 7.9-inch screen that is 1920 by 1200. But we kind of know what that is already. We had the Shield already, the Shield Portable with the screen built in and the controller. Like we know kind of what it's like to play games on a smallish screen with a decent controller. But
yeah, the Ouya, the Amazon, you know, Fire. I mean, it's
right.
I mean, you know what I mean? It's a, you know, it's a, you know, I'm laughing a little bit, but essentially, you know, it's kind of interesting to think about, you know, while, you know, Ouya sort of pioneered this idea of an Android-based gaming console, and you know, there seems to be roughly 3,000 different Android sticks being peddled, and then the Amazon comes in with the Fire TV and their own batch of, you know, Ouya has exclusive games, the Fire TV has exclusive games. It would be highly amusing to me to watch, you know, NVIDIA come in, you know, and finally create a mobile market for themselves by creating this sort of Android console environment where not only do you get, you know, $100 streaming video / gaming box, you know, it'll run Netflix, it'll run something cool. You can have 4 controllers on it at once, but it's a tablet too. It'll,
yeah.
You know, it's.
I wonder about the person that is willing to have a tablet that they come home and hook it up to an HDMI cable at their TV versus somebody who wants like that set-top box to just kind of be there already, like have it and not be something that you want to take back and forth. And it really comes down to, with all of these things, any type of new platform is what is the software support going to be? If no games that are, or not enough games come out that are really, really compelling for people, then how is it adopted, right? This will support the game stream technology, right? So the ability to stream, you know, your games from your PC to the Shield tablet. And then, you know, if you have that hooked up to your TV, you are essentially streaming it to your TV and you're using a console quality controller with the Shield controller to play it, which is something that they supported with Shield before, but you had to attach. You were basically leaving your controller attached to the TV and had to get a separate controller for that, which totally defeated the purpose, in my opinion. And it was kind of just a not well thought out idea. This is a little bit better, right? You're leaving the display over there. They've built a really good 10-foot interface for it so that you can still use it with the controller, like using Android with the controller from, you know, 10, 15 feet while you're looking at your TV. It's a pretty cool little gadget, but I'm eager to use it for the rest of this week and over the weekend and kind of see if it makes sense as a product for somebody in the long run, right? You know, do you want to stream your Android gaming via Twitch from your tablet, right? That's a fairly niche audience. I bet.
At $300, it's in, you know, it's an interesting choice. It's an interesting option. Hopefully, it will jumpstart the development of some more sophisticated games on Android, which I am all for. The more quality time I spend with my Moto G, my suffering, but you know, hardworking Moto G. $299 for the 16 gigabyte version with Wi-Fi, $399 for the 32 gigabyte version, and $59 for the Shield controller. And should you want the custom Shield cover, that'll be another $39. So Lord knows those NVIDIA folks have figured out the accessories market.
Yeah, I'm just curious. Like, so that total cost, if you get the controller and the cover, is $399, and that's the price of a PlayStation 4 and Xbox One. So, like that, the tablet part has to be compelling to you. Otherwise, if you want just gaming, you're going to go for a console.
But, you know, if you buy a console, you're going to have to buy an HD TV to have the full digital gaming experience. But if you bring home the Shield tablet, the screen's right there, Ryan. You know, you should take home 2. 1 for you.
You're right.
Dogs.
You're right. I'm
1
in.
for each of the dogs. You're going to need 3. 1 for the wife. 4. I think you need 4 Tegra tablets. I don't know.
Dogs don't deserve any tablets anymore.
Oh, my goodness. I'm not going to ask what that's all about, but I am going to ask about, you know, we don't see this phrase bandied about lightly or at all for that matter. I'm talking about the Western Digital Red 6 terabyte, Red Pro 4 terabyte, full review, quote, bigger and faster. And the thing that kind of caught my eye is at the very top of the story. Let's see a picture of those red drives again, because they're pretty. Bring them up, Burke. Show me those red drives again. Oh, yeah. 6 terabytes, 1 3.5-inch drive. That excites me. What does not excite me, though, is, quote, in the preparation for this review, writes Alan Malventano, we noted abnormal behavior with the 6 terabyte RED. After coordination with Western Digital, they replaced our results. Excuse me, they replicated our results and will be issuing a firmware to correct the issue. We are publishing this piece as is with caveats added as appropriate. We will revisit this piece with an additional update once we have retested the 6 terabyte RED on the updated firmware configuration. More information and detail is available in our related news post on this matter. End note. So it was a configuration issue, question mark?
So we don't really know 100% what it is. First of all, this only affects the 6 terabyte drive.
Right.
And basically what Alan saw was that with NCQ, which is command queuing, the idea of command queuing, as a refresher real quick, is that you send a bunch of requests to the hard drive, and the hard drive is able to reorder those commands to best fit the pattern of the disk spinning and where the head is, right? So it's able to improve overall speed by maybe switching the order of a couple of data requests. Without NCQ, you are essentially accessing each data request sequentially in order, and it kind of slows everything down. So what we saw in the benchmarks were as you increase the queue count, as you did multiple things, as you were throwing multiple threads at the hard drive, rather than performance kind of gradually increasing, you saw performance just kind of plateau very early. And, you know, at first we kind of thought, well, this was a decision they made because of the extreme platter density or something like that. But we quickly kind of figured out that that's not the case, that they had an issue. And whatever the configuration error is, it's something in their firmware. They're going to have to issue a firmware update for it. So it's not like they're going to have to recall any of these drives or anything.
Okay.
But it's kind of essentially it looks like NCQ is not enabled for these particular drives. So that would obviously be a pretty big drawback. But that affects one aspect of the 6 terabyte drive. If you look at the sequential results, like maybe if you go to the HD Tune Pro results that he has there, the 6 terabyte RED is still able to average like 131 megabytes per second read speeds. Really only bested by a couple of other drives, like the ones that spin at 7,200 RPM. So this is a 5,400 RPM 6 terabyte drive that launched. And then the RED Pro 4 terabyte is a 7,200 RPM 4 terabyte RED drive. So if you look at that result, like it's actually the fastest drive of those hard drives tested, with the exception of the Velociraptor 1 terabyte drive, 145 megabytes per second average read speed. And then it obviously has improved performance in seek times and a bunch of other things that happen when you go from 5,400 RPM to 7,200 RPM. The way Alan kind of explained it to me is the RED Pro is a new line being launched essentially right now by Western Digital, and it's kind of taking the lower level of their enterprise class hard drives, bringing them down into a lower price point, taking away a couple of the features, but keeping the ones that are necessary for, say, mid-size RAID arrays, anywhere from like 2 to 8 or 2 to 10 or whatever it happens to be, TLER, those types of things, and keeping them in there while improving performance, right? So 6 terabyte is like, hey, we're increasing platter density and capacity. That's the big jump there. And then the RED Pro is kind of like, hey, we're improving performance while keeping the density where it is and keeping those kind of enterprise class features. So, you know, you can pick up a 6 terabyte drive for, was it $299? Yeah, $299. I would say, because of that note that you read off at the beginning, it's right. I would not buy this hard drive yet. I would wait for them to kind of release that firmware, confirm that it works fine. Because what you don't want to do is you don't want to buy hard drives today, put them in some kind of production, either in your system or on a NAS device, and then have to take them out to update firmware. That's dangerous. It's troublesome. It's just, you know, it's a headache you don't have to deal with. You want it, like, if you buy the drives and then the firmware updates there, you just buy it and put it in your system, update each hard drive's firmware, and then you put them in production and you'll be good to go. That won't be that big of a deal. But I would just wait to make that purchase. If you need to buy them now, that's fine. You can just stack them in a corner, but I wouldn't start using them until this firmware update comes out for the 6 terabyte drive.
So many firmware updates, so little time. I will wait patiently for the 6 terabytes of glory.
Fair enough.
Or go with 4 terabytes now. Call me old-fashioned. Call me fickle, ladies and gentlemen, but it's going to be time to expand the NAS soon. John Carmack's replacement at id, Tiago Souza from Crytek. Did I say that name even remotely correctly, Ryan?
I don't know.
Lead
Probably.
R&D graphics engineer at Crytek, according to his now defunct Twitter account at Crytek_Tiago, according to his new Twitter account at id Software Tiago. Very, very compelling that. He'll be joining id Software to help with Doom and id Tech 6. And I'm quoting Scott Michaud up on PCPer.com. Quote, I find this more interesting because of ID Tech 5 has not exactly seen much usage. I say id Tech outside of Rage. Wolfenstein: The New Order was also released on the technology 2 months ago. There is one other game planned, and that is it. Sure, Rage is almost 3 years old, and the engine was first revealed in 2007, making it 7-year-old technology, basically. Still, that's a significant investment to see basically no return on, especially considering that its sales figures were not too impressive. Steam and other digital delivery services excluded. So... You know, it's interesting. Of course, people commented on the internet. The comments were mixed, and you know, some apparently like Mr. Tiago, some apparently do not like Mr. Tiago. It will be interesting to see how it works out. I don't know. I'm still, and I don't mean to discount the roles of any of the extraordinary group of people that have worked at id over the years, but the whole idea of id without Carmack is just really weird to me.
Yeah, it definitely is. Although, you know, everything's got to change, but in terms of getting, like, I don't know this guy Tiago, or I've never met him or anything like that, but based on how the Crytek engine is technologically, I think it's probably a good person. They probably got the right person to head up somebody if you're trying to build a new game engine based on, right? The CryEngine stuff has been amazing looking for years and years and years. Now, the games actually coming out based around it have had mixed results, but the engine itself has always been really impressive. So if that's what id and Bethesda are trying to do by bringing him in and kind of redoing id Tech and making that engine, you know, trying to make it as popular and as impactful in the industry as it once was, then I think they did probably a good job there. But like I said, I don't have any experience with them personally or professionally, so good luck, I guess.
Good. I think we wish everyone well. Except for those who cross us, and you'll find out what happens when you cross us. NVIDIA GeForce 800 series 28 nanometer in October or November. Scott wrote this up for PC Per. Quote, many of our readers were hoping to drop one or more Maxwell-based GPUs in their system for use with their 4K monitors, 3D, or whatever else you need performance for. That has not happened, nor do we even know for sure when it will. The latest rumors claim the NVIDIA GeForce GTX 870 and 880 desktop GPUs will arrive in October or November, just in time for holiday shopping. More interesting, it is expected to be based on GM204 at the current 28 nanometer process. NVIDIA has not commented on the delay. Quote, but we can tell something is up from their significantly different roadmap. What's going on with the roadmap, man? It seems to have shifted.
Yeah, so I think most of this, I'm not sure who I'm going to blame here, but for whatever reason, the transition from 28 nanometer to 20 nanometer is like totally borked. And as a result, both AMD and NVIDIA are having to redo their roadmaps, right? It's been a long time since we've seen a new architecture come out of either company, really. Like we saw the Hawaii architecture, but it was only the 2 high-end chips. We saw the Maxwell architecture from NVIDIA, and it was only the low-end mainstream, like 750 Ti. So they both have had like their little runs of portions. You know, AMD chose to go after the high-end enthusiast market. NVIDIA chose to go after the kind of mainstream market.
Right.
But nobody has revamped their entire lineup. And if you look at what, you know, was supposed to happen, we were supposed to go from Kepler to Maxwell with unified virtual memory and then to Volta. And if you look at the slide above that, you'll notice that there has been something placed in between Maxwell and Volta now called Pascal. If you just go up to that next slide just above there. And that is essentially a result of... and also notice that the timescale went from 2014 to all the way up to 2016 there for Pascal. This is a result of process technology, not really keeping up with what everybody wanted to do. You know, it depends on who you ask, right? So the 20 nanometer stuff from TSMC has either been completely bought up by Apple, or it's so limited in production that it's just not feasible for 2 major GPU launches in the same year, right? And so my guess would be that if that's the case, you get like a bidding war between NVIDIA and AMD, and who wants to pay the most for each wafer. Neither of them really wants to pay what TSMC wants to charge, so Apple gets it all. And NVIDIA and AMD revert back to 28 nanometer. So it looks like, according to these rumors now, that we will see a new graphics card like in the October-November timeframe, based on Maxwell, but using the 28 nanometer technology that NVIDIA was hoping to be able to not use. They were hoping to be able to integrate 20 nanometer and, as this says, unified virtual memory, but I don't think that's going to happen. I think that would be a pretty big shift for them. Maybe it will, but I don't really know. So that's kind of messy. People are always asking, when's the next video card coming out? And now you know why it's been so long. At least you have an idea. And you know, October, November. Like if it's October, November, that's still pretty far away, right? Yeah. So. And no real indications here in any leaks that I've seen in terms of what the actual performance delta would be between any of these parts and the currently existing Kepler parts. So I don't know.
We shall wait with bated breath, ladies and gentlemen, which brings us, actually, we should take a moment to remind you how to contact us. Twitch, TWiCH, at twit.tv. That is Twitch with no T, not Twitch like the gaming video website, but Twitch, well, like TWiCH. And Twitch, should be Twitch at twit.tv is the email. Twitch is the thing to look for on the twit.tv website if you want to get all of our older episodes. And, well, just kind of subscribe and hang out with us on a weekly basis. And you can tweet at Ryan Shrout or at Patrick Norton and ask us questions that way. And oh, wait a minute. Flash news before we go on to viewer questions. Your Oculus DK2 has shipped.
It has.
It's going to show up tomorrow or Monday?
I don't know. I just got the tracking number. Unless it's coming from Kentucky or the East Coast, someplace very close, it will probably not be until Monday. So we'll see. But I just literally got the tracking number right before we went live on the air, so to speak. But that tracking number has not actually been registered yet. Like I can go to the page and UPS doesn't seem to know where it is. It's making me very nervous as we go. I just checked again and it's still not.
Don't do that to yourself, man.
So I'm guessing not tomorrow would be a good guess.
Don't do that to yourself. It's the worst feeling.
I'm excited.
You know, and then you click like, where is my package? And it's like, you know, we have not picked up your package in our tracking system. It's probably sitting out in front of the building being stolen by someone who hates you as we speak. Like, what? I remember reading that. Yeah. We got a question. We got a couple NAS questions. Matt writes in, I have 2 quick questions for you guys today. First, what is the cheapest 4-bay NAS that you can recommend? I have a few 4-terabyte Seagate drives around the house that I'd like to arrange in a RAID 5 array to serve up HD movies and TV shows. I don't need anything fancy, as it will merely serve as a network storage location, so something around or below the price of a Netgear Ready NAS 104, which costs $250, would be great. My second question is mostly for Ryan, who is apparently a whiskey connoisseur. What smooth U.S. whiskey, Tennessee bourbon, etc. would you recommend for a beginner? I've been liking JD's Gentleman Jack and Woodford Reserve, but I'm looking to expand my boundaries. I'd like to keep the price below $40 for a 750 milliliter bottle. Thanks, Matt. P.S. I got the iFixit tool set for Christmas on your recommendation and have been loving it. Awesome. We're both actually big fans of iFixit and the iFixit tool set. We both use them pretty much on a daily basis. Yeah. You know, if you want to get wild and crazy, there is a fantabulous FreeNAS build up on DieTrium where we basically walk you. We actually have some of the developers from the FreeNAS group walk us through building your own FreeNAS box out of old hardware, which would be cheap and relatively stable. Cue emails and tweets and comments from people who are like, you know, don't build a free NAS box without error correcting RAM. The fastest processor you can build in ponies. NAS for free would be actually a good one. If you have, if you're like throwing something together and you got some older drives, run NAS for free. You're not going to get some of the full Zoot, super cool high-end disk protection that's built into the ZFS file system, but you're not going to need a lot of hardware to do it. If you're building a free NAS box, it was like running ZFS and you wanted performance to be fairly serious and usable, you'd want like a gigabyte of memory for a terabyte of data. But Netgear makes decent stuff, Radeon S104. I'm a big fan of Synology. I've worked with a lot of their stuff. I'm trying to remember, there was one particular 4-bay NAS that, of course, I cannot remember at the moment.
I know Alan is a fan. We like the Western Digital MyCloud devices. They have a MyCloud EX4 that's like $309, so it's a little bit more expensive, and it's 3-bay. You can get it without disks for $309, or you can get it with up to 16 terabytes in there for like $1,000. That seems to have pretty good reviews, and I know we have used and tested those out here. They have pretty good software integration as well if you want to have some cool features like being able to access all that stuff from your phone remotely without having to set up any servers or anything yourself. So and that has USB 3 and gigabit Ethernet connections as well. And I think there's why am I blanking on the cheaper version of it? The EX4 is kind of like the enterprisey model of it, and then I think he did a review on the Western Digital MyCloud Mirror, but that's with hard drives. I don't know. I'll have to look and see. But there's another one that's a little bit less expensive that loses some. Like this one has 2 gigabit Ethernet connections, which you don't really need.
It's a little high end. I mean, there's a lot of people that like QNAP, Thecus, Synology, Netgear. Seagate just got into the NAS business. Western Digital has been in the NAS business. I should say Seagate's just released a bunch of new NASs. It's not like they're really new to that. It's funny, Synology is just doing the DS415 Play, which they've just come out with actually has built-in support for hardware, built-in hardware support for transcoding like H.264, MPEG-4, MPEG-2, and VC1, which I think is really cool, where they're basically thinking like this is sort of a media-centric NAS box. It's also a $540 NAS box, right? So it's a little bit more expensive than what you're looking for. QNAP, a lot of people really, really like. And it's kind of interesting if you want to sort of get an idea of what performance looks like. I'm a huge fan of smallnetbuilder.com. They do a bunch of NAS reviews, and it's interesting. One of the things you want to look at, like Synology, had a frightening thing recently where they were getting slammed on the internet for a security issue, which they had fixed a long time before, but a lot of people weren't automatically updating the operating system on their NAS boxes. So they, as they changed the operating system, they basically forced the updates to be on. And also if you get a chance to take a look at the operating system that's coming with a NAS box, because a lot of them are what I will affectionately call, a little Stone Age, a little DOSy.
Yeah.
And you won't spend a lot of time, or at least I hope you won't spend a lot of time configuring the operating system in your NAS box. But, it's interesting to find out, is it, can you do things like, is there a crash plan plugin? Is there a BitTorrent sync plugin? Do they have basic media serving plugins? Can it do transcoding? Does it have enough performance to say transcode a video on the fly for your 1080p HD TV? Kind of take a look around at what's available out there, and you might find out that you may want to spend a little bit more money to get a little bit more performance, because NAS boxes are not just storage. And also check out NAS for free and free NAS, just because they're awesome. Juan writes in, love the show, blah, blah, blah. I'm an avid listener and developer who is interested.
Wait. Patrick, wait. I didn't answer the whiskey question.
Oh, my goodness. I'm so sorry.
So I don't know much about the prices of the stuff. I don't buy it that often, and I get it for like birthdays and stuff a lot. No, don't get that. Do not get what he's putting up on the screen. Do not get Oak Crow.
I don't know the prices because what price whiskey?
Yeah, well, so... whatever. I would say Eagle Rare is a good one. I don't know if it's that inexpensive. It might be closer to like $70 for a bottle or something like that. But that's like a good one. Like he mentioned Woodford Reserve already, and that's a pretty good mid-range bourbon, if that's what he's starting out with. That's actually a pretty good one that I think like in a lot of bars and restaurants, that may be even as high end as they go in some places. So Eagle Rare maybe be like another step above that. You can go way super expensive if you want, but start there. Yeah, and I look. You can't look up alcohol prices online. I don't understand what the restriction is on that, but it's good. It's good stuff. So give that a shot if you're looking to expand out. Yeah.
Yeah, they don't want 12-year-old buying. Yeah, no, it's awesome. I apologize for interrupting your whiskey, your whiskey thing.
I'll have to bring some in.
Oh my goodness. Juan writes in, love the show, blah, blah, blah. I'm an avid listener and developer who is interested in buying a NAS. I'm looking into Synology DS412 Plus and QNAP, but I know there are many more brands. I want to use it as a backup, versioning control, VPN, and simple web server. I know there are services that do this, but what local solution? But I want a local solution that I can manage. My budget falls in the $500 range, and it would be used for my freelance/side projects. Also, what kind of drives would you recommend for this unit? Please spend my money. Juan, when you say things like that, I feel compelled to remind you that you can write off these expenses against your freelance equipment or your freelance income. In which case you should buy everything and buy lots of it. I've got a pretty badass Synology box at home. Their network is really, really solid. I've used it in a whole bunch of different environments. Starting with the IOSafe NAS box is a 214 NAS RAID, which is probably not what you're looking for, right? Because it's their fireproof, waterproof, mayhem-proof, Synology-powered NAS box. When you jump from the 214 to the 1513, which is a 4-bay RAID, you're paying good money for an extraordinarily bomb-proof case. But I think it starts at $1,600 unpacked, which is way beyond the budget you're looking for. The DS412 should be more than capable of fulfilling your needs, right? So with link aggregation enabled, like 182.66 megabyte per second writing speed under RAID 5 configurations in a Windows environment, 205 megabit per second reading. Take those specs with a grain of salt because, of course, they're on the manufacturer's page. USB 3.0 support, which offers transmission speeds of up to 5 gigabits per second. So that's the option of actually being able to plug your primary production machine via USB 3.0 is pretty tempting. And what's nice also is that, a NAS box versus, say, a free NAS build, you're looking at like minimal power consumption also because their chips they're using. I think you're probably pretty happy with the DS412. We also just went through a laundry list of alternatives with other manufacturers.
Yeah, and it's Drobo still makes a good product. Like the Drobo 5N is like $530 without hard drives, so it's a little bit on the expensive side for sure. But they have a pretty good feature set. He mentioned specifically he's looking for like versioning and VPN and simple web server, and that to me is what's like the versioning is the thing that's I don't know which ones support it and which ones don't, but I have to look through here on that stuff. Like that's more like on the software side of things, right? So,
and also the VPN is almost always supported in your router, not in your NAS box.
Yeah, they have like Drobo apps. That's what I was thinking of for some of that stuff. Like they have an Apache app that will run on the Drobo, so you can have a real simple web server if you want to do that. Crash Plan is on there, and then they have some other stuff to like replicate Dropbox functionality and things. So they have some interesting ideas in there. It's been a while since I've used any of this stuff from Drobo, but hey, you can run Perl and PHP, so there's that.
Sorry, I just found out there's like an open VPN plugin for Synology NAS boxes. And I'm going to stop reading that because, once I start geeking out on VPNs, I will not be able to do anything useful. One last question before we go.
Sure.
Ryan, what do you want to hear? 64 gigabytes of memory or power supplies going bang?
Let's do the 64 gigs. We'll do more power supplies going bang next week.
Everyone should have a power supply go bang at least once, but only if it's on a system they've recently backed up. Ask me why I say that. Daryl writes in, I want to buy a new PC soon. It seems as if most top out at 32 gigabytes of RAM. This would be okay for my needs, but I hear that a new crop of processors are coming out soon, and I want to know if they will be able to handle 64 gigabytes of RAM. If so, I would wait to buy one of those. Background information. Daryl does music engineering, production for film, TV, and games. He uses Pro Tools when scoring films and uses virtual instrument plugins to create the orchestra sounds as well as for the audio effects, EQ, reverb, compression, etc. Audio plugins rely on a large amount of RAM and a fast processor, i.e. there could be hundreds of tracks required for each film. One, cool job. Two, you are the person we are talking about when we talk about people do like video production and need all of, I love the money. The money wipe is just so money. You are the person we're thinking of when we say, hey, if you're doing video editing, spend all of the money you have on RAM and on processor. One of the problems, though, we should point out is there's a lot of times there are processors that support all of the memory in the planet, but you cannot buy a motherboard that supports all of the memory in the planet. Or if you can, you're going to have to track down a fairly high-end and expensive motherboard. And I find it interesting, as we had the parade of new motherboards, I think, what did you see, like the specs for 75 motherboards in 6 weeks of 75 motherboards or 90 motherboards across 3 manufacturers in the space of 6 weeks earlier this year? Yeah. How many of those actually supported the maximum amount of memory supported by the CPU? Probably like none. 1, 2, 8.
It's higher than it used to be because the Z97 chipset, the most recent chipset release, because the density of memory modules has expanded, like you can get 8 gig memory modules now fairly easily. That's kind of what was determining it, right? The motherboards wouldn't support it because the modules weren't out to like validate, essentially. Right. But now that the modules had been out, a lot of the Z97 motherboards, like I would guess maybe 50% of the Asus Z97 lineup supports 32 gigs of memory because it has 4 modules and they know about 4 DIMM slots rather, and you can put 8 gig modules in them. But that is the physical limit of the processor. I believe it's a processor, not a chipset limitation to 32 gigs there. If you need 64, you can get 64 gigs today on the X79 platform, I think. Yeah. But the upcoming X99 motherboards with the Haswell E will have 4 memory channels, right? You'll have quad memory channels, and I'm almost assured you'll be able to support 64 gigs on that, right? Fairly easily, I think, on a lot of motherboards at least. I'll be curious to see how many boards ship with 4 DIMM slots versus 8 DIMM slots in those platforms. I really have no idea at this point. Because 8 DIMM slots is a lot for a desktop or even for like a kind of a high-end workstation motherboard. That's going to take up a lot of physical space on a motherboard PCB. So it wouldn't surprise me if you see a lot of the X99 boards ship with 4 DIMM slots, but it's 4 channels instead of 2 channels. So it'll be interesting. But that's really the platform that he should be on the lookout for because it's not that far away, and he has the workload that really kind of justifies that, as you were saying, to spend that kind of money and to look for that. I'm going to get an 8-core processor with hyper-threading and 64 gigs of RAM. Yes, you should do that. If you think that's what you need, that's probably what you should wait for sure. Yeah.
And that about sums it up, because you're going to be really frustrated if you buy this badass system right now and go, if I just waited a few months, I'd have. And
I don't usually say that. That's not usually my MO is to wait. Usually I'm the guy that's kind of saying, yeah, you should buy that stuff. Because what's it matter? You could always wait.
We're the ones who are always like, hey, if you wait 6 months, you're going to get a faster GPU or the same amount of, GPU processing power for less money.
Correct.
Wait, if you're thinking about buying a PC piece by piece over the next 60 months and then building it, wait 6 months once you have all the cash saved up and buy it then, because you're going to get a better GPU or a better CPU for the money. But yeah, dude, in this case, wait, Daryl, and then send us a picture of this ridiculous badass system you've got running with like 100 instruments simultaneously, so all of us in the TWiCH army may stare with envy and lust in our little digital hearts. And since I rarely say envy and lust and staring on Twitch, I think we should call it there. What's coming up on this week on PC Per?
Well, by next week, we'll be able to talk about the Shield tablet in its entirety for review. I think we just got a box of 4 new graphics cards in, so I don't know,
Really?
probably video cards in, not like new GPUs, but updated versions, new coolers, new overclock settings. And we have Intel's going to have a new 2.5-inch SSD review that Alan is preparing for us next week as well.
I'm excited. We just went through the new Raspberry Pi B Plus. I got a review of that up on Texilla Bytes. And we're actually going to be doing our first Raspberry Pi B Plus build. I think it's going to be a BitTorrent sync box next week. We've got our very first Chromebook we have in. We're going to flip a coin, and either Shannon or I are going to spend a week doing everything on a Chromebook and then report back. I thought it'll be interesting to see how that works. And if you have any questions about living on a Chromebook, do me a favor and email techzilla@revision3.com. I'm really curious to see how that goes. The whole idea of walking away from Windows and OS 10 kind of frightens me. And speaking of OS 10, Yosemite dropped, or the consumer beta dropped this morning. We'll be talking about that next week on Texilla. Yes, I have a laptop right there that I'm going to wipe and put a beta operating system on, and hopefully the laptop will still be speaking to me by the end of it. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Ryan Shrout of PCPer.com. I'm Patrick Norton from Techzilla and TWiCH, and we want to thank each and every one of you for listening and watching, and remind you to go to twit.tv/Twitch to find all of our episodes and all the information on subscribing and watching. Thank you so much. I'm Patrick Norton.
I'm Ryan Shrout.
We'll see you next week on Twitch.